Okay, recording has started. So welcome to today's tutorial. We'll be finishing off the exam because yesterday I just left it off with on the array part. So yeah, you can ask a question. Yeah, then okay, yeah, this looks okay. Yeah, you can ask a question. I can't hear you. There's no sound. Still no sound. I'm not getting anything on my side. I don't know, maybe try exiting and then joining again. Okay, so while we wait for him, let's look at the question paper. So I wanted to state something about when you have two game modes, right? My advice, right, is to always for both game modes, you should make them use a two-dimensional array of integers. And then if you want to involve the Boolean, you have to create a third array. That's if it's necessary, only if it's necessary. If it's not, then you can ignore. You don't have to add the third array. So that's the first thing I need to fix. I need to make this use a two-dimensional array of integers, same as this one. Then I'll also create a two-dimensional array of Boolean, whereby at each coordinate, it's either a true or false, meaning it's true if there's a water item, or false. When it's false, obvious, that means it's an empty space. So that's the logic I wanna use. So I need to change my solution quite a bit. Yeah, what was your question? Can you try to speak up now? Still no sound, man. I can't hear you. I guess or you can try typing it down because it seems like your laptop is having issues. You can try to type it down. So while you're typing down the questions, so let me change up, to switch up the array thing. So as I've stated, for this for this test paper, right, or for this question paper, when you got to this last bullet point, it didn't work the way it was intended to work, right? So my chat, right? Let me explain why I'm choosing this approach. I'm not ChatGPT. What is this? Paint. Um, so yeah, let me show you why. So we're gonna have, for example, black circles, it's empty space. So empty, 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 right? Just random. And then they say this is a water item over here. So what I would do is I'll create a two-dimensional array of integers and then store these symbols, right? As usual. Then I'm gonna create a second array, which is of type Boolean, whereby at each coordinate, it's gonna represent a true or t. I'm just gonna use t for that. True if there is a water item, else it's gonna be false. At each coordinate, you see in this case, the black dots is gonna be false, right? The black dots is gonna be false. Then with this is actually the water item, so this would be a true. Then I'm gonna use that array to print, right? I'm gonna use that array to print. The reason why I'm choosing this approach, right? Why am I using two arrays? The thing is, if you watch the yesterday's recording, it populated everywhere after the first move, which is a problem. The reason why I chose this approach is that I'm gonna use the second array, which is the Boolean array. And then at that coordinate, if there's a true, right, I populate the square radius, right, around that water item. Then once I'm done populating, only then after I'm done populating, then I will update the Boolean array later so that it doesn't populate the whole game world. It only populates those current water items that are there. That's my main goal. So I hope it's making sense. So this is why I chose to use two arrays. So that the first array stores the actual game characters, right? The game features or the game characters. Then the second array it stores true or false, meaning true if there's a water item at that coordinate, and then false if there's no water item. When there's no water item, it means that it's an empty space. So when it's false, I know there's an empty space. If it's true, I know there's a water item. Why am I doing that? I'm gonna explain again. I'm using two arrays simply because if you watched yesterday's recording, the game populated the water item populated the whole game after one move, which is wrong. You should only populate the ones that the water items. You should only populate for the square radius of the water items that are currently available in the game. So yeah. So when I do this approach, it's gonna help me in the sense that I'm gonna use the second array to see if there's a true. If there's a true at that coordinate, then I'm gonna use those coordinates to populate around within the square radius of that coordinate. Because if it's a true, that means there is a water item. Then I'm not going to update the Boolean array, right? I'm going to update the Boolean array after I've populated within the square radius so that it doesn't populate the whole game. It only populates the current water items that are there. Then once I'm done, I update the Boolean array to accommodate those new water items that I've placed within the square radius. And then I'm going to go through all those coordinates and then set the array to be equals to the array, the Boolean array at that specific coordinate to be equals to true. I think a tablet would have made it easier to write it down. The thing is, I'm using my laptop, so it might not be clear, but you see that it will work once I use this technique. So yeah, so it's fine. I'm gonna have this. This is still fine, right? These two are still fine because I also need a two-dimensional array of Boolean of bool, right? So we're gonna have three arrays. So we're gonna have this one, water. No, I need to change this. This is going to be the water array, and it needs to be 2D array. It has to be array of integers, right? Then I'm gonna have the third array of type Boolean, right, which is 2D water, and I'm gonna call it has water because it stores whether that coordinate is water or not. So that's why I'm calling the array has water. Then I'm gonna need to change my allocation a little bit, right? It's no longer false, it's now empty, right? It starts as empty. And then down here, where I was setting it to, where is it? Yeah, water item over here. Yeah, it's fine. I put water there. Oh yeah, I was still explaining yesterday that we're gonna change this to water, and then I forgot to put it back to true, which is fine. But it was supposed to be true initially. Then I was supposed to change it to now water, because the array is now an array of two-dimensional. It's a two-dimensional array of integers, right? Then what I'm going to do is the third thing. Remember, we're not done yet because I want to also update the Boolean array at that specific coordinate to set it to be equals to true because it means that the array that coordinate has a water item. So update will array. So rec world dot has water and the specific row column should be set to true, right? Because you see at that coordinate it has water. also this coordinate is water, so I'm gonna change it to true. Then before we continue, I'm using this array. Do you see the problem? I'm using this as water array, but I haven't allocated for it. So let's allocate for it. Yeah, this is quite a lot of code. I'm not gonna lie. This is a lot of code. Because after allocating, I need to deallocate also. So I need to update my destroy function down there at the bottom. So let's do that now. So record, remember they're all of the same size. So dot has water is equals to new 1D water, set it to rows. But yeah, that's the thing with changing code. Remember that the array water is now an array of integers. So I need to change this to be 1D array because they are now both the same data type, right? And then the water array, I'm gonna come here and say record. Yeah, this also needs to change. I need to say int, right? Because it's now an array of integers. So record that has water at that specific row is equals to new. Remember, it's not a two-dimensional array of integers. It's a two-dimensional array of type bool. So I'm gonna say new bool to be equals to that those number of columns. Then at each row and column, record dot has water. It starts by having no water. So at row column is equals to false. So at every single location, it starts with no water. So starts with no water item, right? Everything is false. Then let's see. Yeah, let's see. Okay, I'm done allocating. Let me not forget to deallocate because I'm most probably gonna forget. So let me go back here. Then I'm also gonna assert the third array because we now have a third array. So here's water. If it's not, it should not be equals to null. And then delete record dot as water. And then record dot has water. And then set it to null pointer. Then yeah, I want to also delete here the rows are the rows dimension, right? So dot has water, right? Then I'm gonna not forget to set it to null so that we can get the segmentation fault error in case we try to allocate or try to access an array that has already been deallocated. So that's why we always set it to null pointer. So that if we try to do something spiritual, it tells us via the error segmentation fault error. Yeah, so far so good, right? Um, yeah, so now when you're showing the array, oh, that's fine. Let me see. Yeah, if you say is visible, yeah, that's fine. I think yeah. So we need to go into the update function because that's the whole point why I created the third array. It's for the update function. So let's try and build and see if there's no error. Okay, there's no error. So let's build and run. Okay. So you see still showing nothing, which is good. But then let me show you why I need the third array. If you remember when I tried to move, right? And then let's say it's gonna ask me, do I want to show the situation above ground, which is this left-hand side, right? So let me enter Y for yes. Yeah, you see the problem that it's displaying the stars everywhere. That's not what it should be doing. So we need to fix that. That's why I introduced the third array. So now with the third array, let's check here. Right here. So let's check here. Duh, 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 duh. Add water item. Okay, I think I'm gonna use the second. Let me see. Should I use the second array? Let me think. I had the solution in my head. Now I'm kind of losing the solution. Let me think about it. So should I use the symbols true or false? Should I use the Boolean array or the characters array to update, to check? I think I should use the Boolean. Yeah, I think I should use the Boolean. Yeah, I should use the Boolean. So I'm gonna use the Boolean array. So I'm gonna say dot has water at that location, right? So I'm gonna check if it's equals to true. But remember, this is a Boolean, so this gives you back a true or false. So this is redundant over here. I can just leave it like this because all of this over here is gonna return a true or false. So it's gonna be like this, true or false. So there's no need for that equals true. It's pretty redundant. It'll still work, right? There's no problem with that, but it's redundant. There's no point. Then if it has water at that location, right? Um, yeah, if it is a water item at that location, then I set it to water, right? Let me see. No, no, no. Let me check something. Let me double check something here. Yeah, I think I'm doing it wrong. Yeah, I think my logic. Let me see. Oh, this is the. Yeah, I'm doing it in the wrong place. I was supposed to check here. You see here is equals to what? RC. That's the place. Check if an empty location has been found. Yeah, my bad. So this is fine. I was changing the wrong place. This is fine. I need to change here when I'm checking this. Do you know why I'm using a second array? The problem is this. I think I tried explaining it yesterday. If you have these symbols, right? Let's say these are the what items. If you say this is the what item and you want to populate around it, remember we're still currently at this column. Then it's gonna go to the next column, which is okay, let's say there was nothing here. Then we placed a water item like this, but we are currently at this coordinate, right? We are currently here. Then we ended up adding this um, orange water item. Then the column is gonna move to here, right? We don't want to also add around this because if we add around that, that means the whole game ends up being populated. That's why instead of me using the array for the features for the up for above ground, I'm gonna use the Boolean array because that will help me prevent that mess. So let me show you. So instead of checking if that location is a water item, I'm gonna say has water, right? At that coordinate, if it has a water item, then you do all of that, right? Um, yeah. Let me think about it. Yeah, it should be okay. Yeah, it should be okay. But then there's something that I need to change here, right? So after this, right? So here I need to put a comment and say add water items within one cell radius. That's what this code is answering. Then before we leave the function here, I need to update the bool array. Why am I updating the bool array? And why am I updating after? Because I want to prevent this thing of overpopulating, right? Because if I overpopulate, it populates the whole game. That's a problem. So what I'm going to do is once I have added the features I've populated the features within square radius, then I'm now going to update the Boolean array to accommodate those new features. Because remember, every time we add a water item, we're supposed to set it to true. That because it has water that coordinate. Where is this? Where is the part here, right? You see, every time we added a water item at that same coordinate, row and column, we set it to be true because it's true. It has water at that coordinate. So the same thing is going to apply when we every time add a new water item. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna do it after populating. Why after populating? So that it doesn't populate the whole game. It only populates for the current water items, not the new ones that we added. Right? Hence, I switched and I used this Boolean array instead of the features array. Because if I use the features array, remember what I talked about? If there's a new feature here right next to the old feature, which is this one, it also populate around this new feature. It also populate around this new feature over here, which is a problem because that means we end up populating the whole game. So hence I prefer I choose the other technique, which is using a third array or a second array for that first game mode. Then now I need to update to accommodate the new features, right? So I'm gonna say for int r is less than reqword dot rows r plus plus. Yeah, I would advise you to go through, double check the code. I'll send the memo in the group. So if you're a bit confused, just double check the code because I don't know what other way can I explain it. You'd have to actually look at the code and try to understand and also watch the recording again. Maybe if you watch it the second time, it might click. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check if recworld dot has water at that specific coordinate RC. But I want to check if it does not have, so I'm going to do a not, which is exclamation. So if it does not have a water item at that location RC, but, right, these two conditions need to be true. So I'm going to use an and because both conditions need to be true. So I'm going to say and my array for the water items, right, which is the features, it's actually pointing to a water item. Meaning we do have a water item at that coordinate, but we haven't updated the has water array at that coordinate. That's basically what I'm doing here. I'm saying if it does not have a water, if there's no, if it's not set to true, right, at that coordinate RC, that row column, but the array has an item, a water item at that row column, that RC row column, then that means I need to update the has water there's water array at that specific coordinate because that would mean that this is the new water item. So I'm gonna just add extra parentheses here just to separate them. So I'm gonna cover this like this. Right? Yeah, so there is. So if there's no water, if my array says that there's no water item, but the feature is there. The water item is there in the array. That means that means that's the new water item. So I need to update this as water to accommodate this new water item. So I'm gonna say reqword dot has water rc is equals to true. And then it should work. I think so, technically it should work. My theory says so. So let's test it out. So let's say we move the player once. So I'm gonna move up. Let's say I want to show, let's say yes. Perfect. You see? So now it's not populating the whole game. It's only populating those game features that we found. Right? So as you can see, this means that there was one, because remember, we're only populating for the game features we found. So that means there was one here at that corner. There was a second water item here, third, fourth water item, fifth water item, sixth water item, seventh water item, and then eighth water item. So there were 8 water items. We could just confirm that with our command line arguments. So let me check. I think I chose 8. Exactly. Yeah, you see, 8. So now my application works perfect. Like, yeah, the logic, chows, but not really. Not really, not too much, but yeah, it's working 100% now. So yeah, we basically done with the question paper. So the only thing, and they said it each turn. So that means every time you move the player, you must ask the user if you want to see the current situation above ground every time. So I know the game is weird, but every time you need to ask. So now we need to do the end game part. Then we're done. Then we do the design. So the end game, yeah, this question was showing. Yeah, so yeah, just practice. I would advise you to go through this question. Do this one. You see, if you master this question paper, this one over here, you'd be fine. Unless if Dr. Stung brings spiritual things, he brings a simulation, but it is two game modes. I, if it was possible, you could just say, said, no, I changed my mind. Can I keep my marks and leave the exam for you? Because I get it's optional, right? The exam. If yeah, because if it brings simulation, that's a lot of code. Because that means these ones will move on their own. These ones also move on their own. Let's say he brings it like that. Whew, it's not gonna end well. But I think that one it has to be a sick test or a supplemented. I think that's the one you can bring it like that because that's too difficult. So it needs the people who had enough time to prepare, which is the ones who write supplementary or sick test. So let's do the end. So they said the game ends in victory if the player replaces all valves before the not okay before the ground above is completely covered by water. Hmm. Yeah, this question paper was showing. I'm thinking about how to implement that, and it seems like going to introduce extra. We have to put a lot of extra work again. So you need to check if the player in this game mode has collected all the, excuse me, has collected all the valves before the water spreads everywhere. That would mean that in this array, everywhere it is true, right? Meaning has water everywhere. It has water. So um, let me see. Mm, yeah, I have a plan. I have a plan. I have an idea. I think two ideas. So now I could approach it. Player replaces all the valves before the ground is covered up. How can you keep track of the valves, right? That's another question you need to understand. How can you keep track of all the valves every time the player collects them? Remember, in the record structure, we store the number of valves. So that would mean that we need to actually use or update that number. So I need to go to the movement here. You see here, when I moved into a valve here, I need to add more code. I need to decrement the number of valves because there's one less valve since it has been eaten up by the player. So I need to say reqwald dot number of valves minus minus, right? That's another that's an important thing to do. Then that number of valves, we're gonna check if number of valves is equals to 0 and the game world is basically the game world is not being populated by water items everywhere, right? How can we check that? The easiest approach or the first thing that most students should think about, the first solution is to do a function, right? That function is going to check if it's going to go through every single coordinate and check if there's a true in every single coordinate. Because you're gonna check if it has water, it is filled, right? You're gonna check if the 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 game mode is filled up with water items everywhere. So that means you're gonna create a function that goes through all the rows and columns, and you're checking this coordinate, is it a true? And then you check on the next one, is this also a true? And then the moment you find a false, you can simply exit the function with immediate effect because there's no need to think it to calculate further to go further, right? There's no need to go further because there's at least one spot that has not been covered. So yeah, so I'm gonna create a function that does that. And this function should only be used inside the CPP file for the header file. So it doesn't belong to the main.cpp. So therefore, I'm not going to declare it in the header file under here. I'll simply just implement it inside the CPP file. That's how you create a function that only exists within the CPP file of the header file. You only write the implementation. You pretend like there's a function prototype out there. That's how it works. But just know the function will only work within that CPP file you've implemented it in. So obviously, only want to use it here, so I'm going to implement it here. And it's going to return true or false. So mm, let me see. I want to check. I want to understand where can I put this if statement or after I have the function. The game ends in victory if the player replaces all the valves before the ground above is completely covered by water. Mm. So so that means it's gonna be in the movement, right? Yeah, I think it should be in the movement. Yeah, I think it should be in the movement. So what I'll do is I'll create a no, is it update? Let me think about it. So we update to the water items, right? And then we update this. So I'm not sure whether it's the update or the movement. Let me see. No, I think it should be in the update. Yeah, it definitely should be in the update, not the movement. Because the movement is, if you notice something, right? The movement comes, we call it before the update. So that means we will assume that the game has ended or okay, it hasn't ended. But by the time we update it, it should actually end. So that means the game never actually reaches an end state. So I'm gonna call it into the update because that's the last function that's called the move player is called before update. So I need to call it inside update. So I'm gonna go above the update function. Where is it? Yeah, S slightly above the update function. Then I'll create that function. I'm gonna say I'm gonna call it is filled with water. That's the function. I'm gonna call it is filled. It returns true or false to check if the game world is actually filled with water items or not. So it returns true or false. So, and we are only checking. That's a very important thing you need to understand. We are only checking, not updating. So I'm gonna pass it by const reference. So const game world because I'm checking my game world. So that's why I'm passing a game world. And there's no extra parameters needed because it just simply checks the game world. Then I'm gonna go through the all the rows, and then record dot rows, and then all the columns in each row. C is less than record dot calls C++. I never thought I would get to this level of understanding. The way these games are so easy now. I remember I used to struggle with this thing, man. I'm also coming far, man. I used to struggle with this thing. Okay, I would get it, but this deep part, I wouldn't. The logic part, I wouldn't get full marks. I always knew because I think my final mark was like 86%. Yeah, because logic was always a problem to fully get the marks or to fully understand it. So now I'm gonna check. Mm, let me see. Yeah, I'm gonna use the keyword continue. I think let me see. Oh no, it's not gonna work. That feature is only in I think it's in Java. Is it Java? Yeah, I think no, it's in Kotlin. Yeah, even Java has it, but I'm not gonna talk about that feature. There's a very convenient feature that I could have used yet, but unfortunately, it's not there in C++. So I'm gonna use the keyword continue, right? So I'm gonna check at that specific row and column if has water RC, right? You could use You don't have to use has water, right? But we have has water array. You could have used the array water, right? You could have said array water, then you check if it's equals to a water item. You could have done that. That's still fine. I'm gonna use has water because basically the same thing. Then if it has water, then I'll just simply continue, right? Go to the next. That's all, and then else, right? If this else, right, it means that there was no water item. If there's no water item, that means I can simply return with false. I can simply see this return. Remember, return, it leaves, it exits the function immediately. Then we also return this false, right? Because it's false, meaning that the full game world is not filled with water. There's at least some locations that are not fully filled with water. I hope I'm making sense of that. Then at the end of the day, once you are done here, you might ask yourself, Marase, we haven't returned true. If all passes, right? Imagine, just know that if we reach by the end of the function, that means that this part was never reached, which means that the game is filled with water items everywhere. So that means I have to return true by default. Because if it managed to reach here, that means every single coordinate is filled with the water item, which would imply that our array, our game mode is filled with what is full. So if it's full, we return true because it is true that it is full. Because look at the name of the function, it's called is filled with water. And we have to return true if it is filled with water, or else return false. And then continue just simply means skip, because there's nothing else to do, right? You could have just left it like this because nothing will still happen. Yeah, but continue just makes it look a bit better. So we have the is filled with water. Then what I'm going to do is I'm gonna wait here, right, to update the has water because remember we are using the has water up there. If you notice something, we're using it here, right? So we need to make sure that we have the current it's up to date, right? The array before we try to update the status of the game. So here I'm gonna check if the game is filled with water, right? By basically saying if is filled with water, then you pass in rec world. Remember that returns true or false. Like I said, you don't have to be explicit and say equals true. You don't have to do that. You simply say is filled. Just call that function because it returns true or false. Then they say if okay, the game ends in victory if the player replaces all the valves, right? It means that the number of valves is equals to zero. Before the above ground is completely covered by water. That means that this game, in simple English, the game ends in victory if you have collected all the valves and is still not filled with water. So if you understand that English, they said it's still not filled with water. So I have to use negation. I have to say not. So if it's not is filled with water, meaning it's not filled with water, and because both conditions need to be true, and record dot number of valves is equals to zero, meaning that we have collected all the valves. Then I'm gonna just add extra brackets here for emphasis. So yeah. So if the number of valves is equals to zero and my game is still not filled with water, then what should happen? The player's won. So I'm gonna say record dot has won is set it to equals to true, right? Then we can check the next one. The game ends in defeat if the above ground is completely covered with water. At least we are using the same function. There's no new function. So we're gonna use the is filled with water function again. So if the above ground is completely filled with water before all the valves underground have been replaced. So that means the number of valves is not equals to zero. If it's not equals to zero, that can only mean that it's still okay. There's still valves in the game. So I'm gonna say else if I won't say else. You see the problem with else, it means that it's the opposite of this. In other or anything other than this, which is a problem because it's gonna accommodate everything. That's not what you want. You want it to accommodate a specific condition. So I'm gonna say if is filled with water, right? And when it's filled with water, and then it so happens to, okay, let me add the extra parenthesis here. If it's filled with water and the number of valves, come on, record dot number of valves is not equals to zero. That means we still have valves that are there, but the game mode is already filled with water. Then what should happen? The player loses the game. So I'm gonna say rec world dot has lost is equals to true. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This was hard. Yeah, you'll see. I'll send you the code. You'll see the logic. This was a hard paper. Exams don't play around. So what I'll do, right? What I usually do, right? I advise you to always put the part where you end the game, put it after displaying the game mode. Why? Because you need to see the state before the game ended so that you can confirm with your eyes to whether the game has actually ended or not. Because if you put it before showing, that means it will show an old game, then you won't be convinced that your game is working perfect. I hope I'm making sense. So I'm gonna do it after. So I'm gonna check if the player has won or lost, right? It's a simple if statement. So if record dot has won, remember you don't have to say equals true. You don't have to do that. And then else if record dot has lost, then we do something. So it's up to you what you output. Um, yeah, I'm gonna try to accommodate the game to apply to the question paper. So I'm gonna say, remember they said it ends in victory if you collected all the valves. So I'm gonna say congratulations, you've collected all the valves. That's the message I'm gonna print. If it's end game, I'm gonna say unfortunately you've lost the game. Or you can say unfortunately the the ground above is completely covered with water. You can just say that. So my point is that try to apply it to the question paper. Don't just say congratulations, you won. What has the player won? How? Things like that. So I'm gonna put asterisks like this. I just like doing it like that, just for the aesthetic, to make it look aesthetically pleasing. And then here I'm gonna say see out. This is where I write the message. So I'm gonna say congratulations. You've collected all the valves, right? Before the water spread, right? They said, yeah, before the ground above is, yeah, but you don't have to, you see now I'm writing a sentence. When it starts looking like a sentence, just know you're on the wrong track. Just say you've completely collected all the valves. That's it, done. Don't add more information. That's sufficient. Then the other one simply is similar, something similar, but now you're gonna say, unfortunately, um, you've okay, not you've. We have to say the ground above has been filled with water, right? That's basically it. This would be the full game. So it should I think most of the time is gonna end. Okay, forgot to put semicolon there. I think most of the time is this game is gonna end quickly because of the way it's structured. It shouldn't it's not a long game the way it's structured. So let me show you. I'm gonna say move up, yes. And then you see perfect, then I'm gonna move down. So let me enter D. And then yes. You see it's spreading little by little, right? So it's working perfectly. D, yes, D, yes, yeah. So you see it did collect here. But you see that the game is slowly being filled by the water items. Then I'll just move randomly because I want to see the end state. So I'm gonna say right, right again. Yeah, you see the game is filling up. And then right again, then right again. Perfect. You see? Yeah, my coding skills are they're they're impeccable. Like it's perfect. Like the game is perfect. It's like the meme. You see, the moment the water was filled, you see that it printed this thing. But it's incomplete because you see that it's still asking for the option. It was supposed to end the game. So I forgot to say break because I'm inside a loop, right? You see that I'm inside a while loop. I need to break the loop or leave the loop. So after I've done printing, remember, order is important. You start by displaying, then you put break once you're done displaying. Then I'm gonna say break. Yeah, my game is working perfect. And then let me cover this. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, so this is the solution. I'm sure the memo was similar to this because my solution is working. Okay, I need to add more here, right? Then add more again. Yeah. So this will be the full solution, right? Yeah, it's quite a lot. It's a lot of logic here. Yeah, by far, this is the most complicated game we've ever done. But at least we did it. It works 100%. So now what we need to do is do the design. So let's quickly do the design and end the session. Uh, uh, design. Okay, so it's down there, right? This is where they explain. Hmm. No, I can't. On movement, all right. The entire design, including UML, you must model. I know. That's you can ask your question. That the design, no. The thing is, you guys have a template of a design, and I did give an example. I think one of the practicals we did, I did give an example for UML, right? The rest, when I talk about the UML, right? I think I'm not sure if I did UML, but the UML is simply I'll give you a chance to ask a question. And just let me finish this. With the UML, right? The UML is simple. I don't see the issue with that. UML, you simply state in what order are things happening. So, for example, okay, it's UML. Let's say we have a start here, right? And then we're gonna have an activity. Yeah, it's an activity. And then this activity, let's say ask user for number of rows, right? Straightforward. I don't see the problem with this. I don't know why you'd get confused. You're just labeling what steps need to be taken. What logic well, basically what steps in English form, what steps are taking place in your logic for that specific function or anything, whatever you're trying to model. So in this case, if let's make a simple example. Let's say you're trying to model the main function, right? Let's say do a UML for the main function. It's up to you where you start. You don't have to always do everything. You can start here, right? You can, I don't know, Yeah, because it's UML, you don't have to. You see all these parts over here. Go to the important parts, like for example, showing the game mode and something like that. That'll be the first thing. You can come here and just say show. Here you say show game mode. That's it. That's the activity. Then after showing the game mode, what else do you do? And then you just put another activity. You say check if the player has won. And then after the activity, what else do you do? Enter the choice or get user input. Right? After that, then what do you do? And then this part over here, this is moving the player. You just simply write it as English as move player. That's how straightforward it is. You're literally gonna put an activity and come here and say move player. You don't model switch statement. You don't say move up. No. What does that have the steps? First step, you get command line arguments. You could, yeah, to be honest, it's fine. You can model everything. You can say step one, seed random number generate. That's activity number one. Here, check, you can add another activity, check command line arguments, right? So you can literally have this, right? The first activity would be seed random number generate. To be honest, there's no need for you to put this as an activity, but I'm just showing you because I want to show you that you just model the steps in English. And then after getting the pseudo number random generator, what do? We check or validate. You can use the word validate. Validate number of arguments or validate argc or argument count because you have to write it in full English. Just say argument count. You see, that's I'm basically explaining what my code does, which so each step, which is true. I start by seeding. That's true. After that, I have an if statement that checks or validates the number of arguments, which is true. And then after that, get number of arguments. You can simply just say get here, you come here, you put another activity. Come on. You say get number, no, get command line arguments. So now you're getting them, right? Or you can say extract. That's up to you. Whatever terminology you use, as long as you show the flow. And then once you're done, you simply add arrows going down. I don't see the hardness of this. This is straightforward. This is free marks. Then when it comes to pseudocode, I did explain that. Just go and rewatch that recording. It's the same things, whether it's an exam, it's the same language, the same approach, same thing. Pseudocode is always going to be the same. But just pay attention to something here. You need to be very attentive. You must model the player movement logic. So that means in your entire design, even UML, even pseudocode, everything in your design, it should be based on the move player function, not the whole solution, not the header file. No, no. Your thing, the function you need to focus on is the move player. So you need to go inside the move player here, right? You do a UML for move player function. You say, what are you doing? Step one. Here you can say, I don't know, we can say move player. Not really, no, no, I wouldn't say move player. You can say find coordinates, right? Find destination coordinates. You can phrase it like that because yeah, that's literally what you're doing with the switch statement. We're finding the coordinates for the destination of basically destination is where we want to move to. So with this switch statement, we are finding or calculating the coordinates. Yeah, just say calculate coordinates. Calculate destination coordinates. Then after that, when you're done, you're gonna say, yeah, this should be short. Like it's very short because you see that there's no, and it's up to you. And if you want to make it complicated, then add a lot of English, but it's straightforward. Then you're gonna have this part here whereby you're moving the player. It's up to you how you want to break down these if statements. You could just phrase it as one big activity, or you break it down. You say you have an activity that says check if it's involved. Then you have another activity that say check if it's a valve. And then based on that, if it's true or false, then you can say move into the location of valve, something like that. remember for choices, right? Remember for choices, if statements can be true or false. So basically it's two-way, which is this diamond over here, right? So it can either be true, meaning is involved, or okay, in this case, let's not focus on is involved. Let's focus on valve, right? We can say going to the right-hand side, it's true, meaning there's a valve. Then we add another activity to say update or move into the valve location, something like that. Then if it's false, what do? We check another condition here. So if it's false, I need to ask another question. So which is another, yeah, it should be another diamond because it can be true or false again. So you end up having, yeah, quite a lot of, yeah, this diagram becomes weird. So you end up having another diamond here, and then you go, and then it goes down here. Then can either be true or false, meaning that this points to an empty location, something like that. So yeah, yeah, there's nothing. The thing is, right, don't worry too much about design because do you see how complicated the question paper is? You're most probably not gonna manage to get in get time to do this design because you'll be chowed by logic. So my advice, attempt at the bonus. If you yeah, with bonus it's modular. Yeah, modular what? Modules, I mean. You're supposed to use modules. Or they said, oh, there's different bonus marks. Yeah. Let me check if I still have the mock test here. Yeah, what was your question?
Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I wanted to say, like, sir, can you please do the bonus
Okay. The thing is, I forgot, but I kind of remember. I forgot. I remember helping some student with the bonus during the semester. I forgot like the structure of the module thing, like the steps. I forgot, but I know you have to have some keyword export, right? You must have some export at the top. You have to, yeah. I think at the if I still remember very well, at the top you're supposed to replace no more hash include and no header file, right? You don't have a header file. You basically only have a CPP file. So I think you say module, right? Then followed by the name of the module you want to create. And then you say export. Yeah, I just forgot the formula. I don't know. Do you guys have slides on modules? Do you guys have what is it? Slides on modules? Are you guys still there?
I mean, I say I haven't seen them.
Yeah, so you see that's the problem, right? That's where my problem is. So wait, when are you guys writing?
On Wednesday.
Okay, so you must one of you should send me a link. I'll quickly check the video Dr. Strong uploaded, or I'll just go do my research and refresh on modules. The thing is, I don't know how to test it without VPL, so I think it's best for me to go do my own research because I want to try it inside code blocks, right? But then if you're trying it inside code blocks, you need to be very careful. Choose the right version of the language. So you have to go to settings and then you click on compiler. You need to choose the right compiler. If you're using like compiler 2011, C++11, it depends. You need to know which compiler it came with the updates of modules because you see these different versions of compilers, they introduce different things. So for example, just an example, let's say C++11 introduced I don't know, let's say header files. So if you use the version before C++11, it won't work because when you create a header file using that previous version, it's gonna crash. That's my point. So you need to also know which version came with modules where they introduced the concept of modules. So I'm gonna go do my research on that. Then we'll do the bonus. I think we should do it I don't know, early morning, like maybe around 10 then. Because it shouldn't take too much time. Once I have my research done. I don't know. Is that okay? 10, like tomorrow 10 a.m.
Yeah, so we can do that.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, the guys have a lot of practice to do. So you need we see the exam is a bit the standard is increased compared to semester test. Or maybe it was the same. I agree you guys were doing two game modes, so it's the same. Yeah, it's the same. But the logic part might have been slightly difficult to the exam. That's the point I was trying to make. So yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. Then we'll do the bonus. Wait, was it a practical? Because I wanted to see, I forgot. I wanted to see how they asked the bonus. Was it a practical that you guys got? I think I remember seeing how the marks, the bonuses are allocated for the question paper. I don't know which paper was it? Was it a prac or was it? I forgot what it was. But yeah, you guys should send me if you can find it. The question paper with the mark like how the marks are allocated based on the bonus that you attempt. Because I think I saw 5% or 5 marks for a different bonus, and then if you attempt the module, it's 20 marks. So yeah, so just send me that question paper or that practical. So yeah, that's it for tonight. Hope you guys have a lovely evening.